I've been tracking these Christian wingnuts who've worked Trump into their theology for a while now. The New York Times just released an article about it, and 3 more pastors came out and defended their claims that God told them that Trump would win the election. Honestly, listening to them try to defend themselves after saying something so incredibly stupid is very entertaining, and extremely cringy, so I figured we'd take a look at a few more of these guys. Let's get into it. Let's take a look at our first pastor, Hank Kahneman. He's loosely associated with our old bud Kenneth Copeland. Remember when he said this a while back?
The beautiful thing is, if the Lord is saying that this nation is being preserved right now and protected, and so is the president going to be, and so is the outcome of the election, as squirrely as it's going to try to be. But just hang on for the ride.
That seemed like his first time dipping his toes in the Trump prophecy waters, but he made some other interesting predictions about it. Here's another.
There are put it back movements that are starting all over the land.
Yeah, put the
where
prayer
people
back.
are saying, put prayer back, put it back. But then he said this, he said, in the vision that he gave me on February 12th, he said, look, what do you see? I said, Lord, it's 2024. He said, look, what do you see? And I saw the words. Are you ready for the word? Yeah. He said, it's payback. Right. And then watch this. Recompense.
Obviously, it's pretty nonsensical to everybody in the audience, not just me, as evidenced by the lackluster applause. What is happening right now? Dude had a dream or something? And in the dream, God said to this guy, recompense? I'm guessing he's gonna try to tie this back to Mike Pence, but as spell checker informed me, that's spelled with an S, not a C. So it seems kind of nonsensical to me at its face. But let's keep listening. He explains himself in a second.
Recompense.
Wow.
Pay attention. Why do you think God allowed a man to be raised up with the name Trump? Which the Lord said something, said, I'm standing in the midst of the man, and my spirit is attached to him, and I'm putting Trump, and I'm calling it triumph, with I'm standing in the middle.
Wouldn't that be triumph? Triumph has an H on the end. He's really stretching it here. But the point is, the dude prophesied that Trump would be president for the next 4 years, and Pence would run and win in 2024. According to God, he said that God gave him this message. There's no coming back from that. So how'd he respond when Biden was inaugurated? This is what he said.
Why is Hank Kahneman standing? Because God has spoken to me. And you want to call me false, and yet I have stood and I stand with God. I will stand with this loyalty, whether you think I'm false or not. If that's what you think, then you can take your opinion and you can shove it.
Oh shit, I'm honestly surprised a preacher would stand up there in front of his congregation and say that. Won't that get you sent to hell or something? He is not happy. I have to be honest. If he didn't want to deal with the aftermath like this, then he shouldn't have claimed God was talking to him. Well, now the dust is mostly settled, and he's dealing with the aftermath full force. So he went on Steve Schultz's YouTube channel the other day to defend himself and his decision to tell his entire congregation to shove it. Let's see what he said.
In the New Testament, the way that prophets were to be judged, according to 1 Corinthians, you read it, it says that if one prophesies, let it be by 2, if not but by 3. And then it says you may all prophesy, speaking even of the prophets, but it says let the others judge. Well, who are the others? The other prophets. It's kind of like this. I don't tell you, Steve, how to run your ministry and your corporation there. Okay, I don't know how to do the techie things that you do. So I don't have a grace, I don't have an anointing, and I don't have a positional authority. Prophets judging other prophets have a positional grace and authority from God. Now, if you're the believer and you're hearing prophecies and it doesn't look like it adds up, always remember that prophecy is in the eye of the beholder. Just because you think that it doesn't come to pass doesn't mean that it didn't come to pass, or it might still come to pass.
What? What does that mean? Prophecy is in the eye of the beholder? What is this dude talking about? I don't understand. Either the prophecy was fulfilled or it wasn't. This dude claimed Trump would win in this past election. Did Trump win? No. Okay. Case closed. You gave us a deadline and a clear prediction. It fell flat on its face. There's no coming back from that. But Hank Kahneman isn't the only person who made a fool of themselves by trying to claim God told them Trump would win. Before we continue, I want to mention a couple things. If you like what I do and you want to see me continue to do it, you can support me in a few ways. First, there's Patreon. That's probably the best way. But if you want to get something back for your support, you can check me out on Teespring, or you can check out my Etsy shop. I sell all kinds of cool stuff on my Etsy shop. I sell game and controller stands for every console from the Atari to the Nintendo to the PlayStation 4, so give it a look. You might find something you like. Also, I just got a new domain name for the Etsy shop. It's skullchestgames.com. I think that's pretty cool. Anyways, let's continue with the video. As I said, Hank Kahneman isn't the only person claiming God told them that Trump would be president for the next 4 years. Here's another dude named Robin Bullock explaining why everybody said Trump would win, but he didn't. Let's watch.
This administration that has proclaimed themselves as king has set themselves to stop the prophecy. It must be a terrible burden to hide the truth and stop prophecy from coming to pass. There's a heavy anointing to be president, and God gives an anointing to carry that anointing. If that anointing to carry the anointing of king is removed or is not there, it will drive you mad.
Okay, so what I'm picking up from this is that Joe Biden specifically set out to overturn God's will, and he succeeded. That's fucking weird. How could he possibly succeed at usurping the will of the most powerful being in the universe? Did you ever consider that maybe God wanted Biden to be president instead? Like I said, he's the most powerful being in the universe. Nothing happens unless he wants it to. Nothing gets past him. You can't hide anything from him. If it's that easy to usurp God's plan, why are Christians so sure God will win the war in Armageddon? They act like it's a sure thing. They're excited for Armageddon because they know they'll be raptured and God will take Satan out and throw him in the pit forever, or whatever it is. But Joe Biden single-handedly overturned God's will, according to these guys. If a single person can do it, what makes him so confident Satan can't? I feel like every part of their theology is contradictory and they just pretend it isn't. But there's another prophet who's upset about what's happening with Trump right now. Her name is Amanda Grace. Seriously, how do these people still have tax-exempt status? I thought the Johnson Amendment in the Constitution made it so that nonprofits would lose their tax-exempt status if they got heavily involved in politics. These people are working Trump into their theology. Anyways, let's see what she had to say about it.
People's actions speak louder than their words. And if these wicked people right now in Congress, who the Lord is going to deal severely with, by the way, they're trying to impeach. You can only impeach a president.
Well, that's straight up not true. Judges get impeached all the time. Impeachment isn't a process designated specifically for the president only. Now, I know what she meant. She meant a president as opposed to a private citizen. And I get it. Trump is a private citizen now. But I want to point out the fact that Trump was impeached for actions taken while he was president. And the impeachment took place while he was still president too. Not only that, but there's old precedent for impeaching people after they've left office. Congress just went through the process of deciding if it was constitutional, and they decided yes, it is. So the impeachment is going forward whether you like it or not. And finally, the process of transition of power is when democracy is at its weakest. Ask any historian or political scientist. When it's time to give the next guy the reins of authority, that's when dictators strike. Every time. Why would they refuse to leave office before they're even required to? It always happens at the end of their term. All over the world, for millennia. This is how it works. Really think this through. You're saying you can't indict a sitting president for something they did while on the job, and you can't impeach them when they're out of office? Pretend for a second that's how it works, even though it isn't, much as you'd like it to be. Is that really the type of system where nobody is above the law? Do you want to live in a system where there are people above the law? I know I've been covering Trump a lot lately, but there's a reason for that. Trumpism is a cult. I don't dive into politics much on my main channel. I save that for my Telltale Fireside Chat channel, previously called my podcast. But this channel is all about cults. That's what it's been since day one. And when I see a cult, whether my audience likes it or not, I'm gonna have to address it. Anyways, let's get back to this clip and see what else Amanda Grace had to say about Trump.
If he's really a citizen right now, how are you impeaching him? You can't impeach a regular citizen. It's not possible. Not according to the law, not according to the Constitution. So their actions, sometimes the actions of the wicked will give them away, are pointing at something is not quite kosher going on with who's the president.
Well, that's just straight up not true. I mean, I don't know if it's a lie or not. I try not to say people are liars because that implies intent. She's not telling the truth either way. Is she doing it intentionally to deceive people? Who knows? Either way, her claim here is the fact that they are legally and rightfully putting him on trial for actions he took while he was president means that they did something evil. Way to flip the script. Does this apply in any courtroom type of situation? Anytime somebody is put on trial for something, does it mean that the prosecutor did something wrong? This logic doesn't hold up at all. But she calls herself a Christian prophet, so evangelicals believe it without question. It's genuinely sad and disturbing. We've seen endless self-proclaimed prophets claim that God told them that Trump would be president for the next 4 years. Why? What made them so confident that they felt comfortable making that claim? Most of these people are televangelists or evangelicals of some sort. Evangelicalism is kind of an ideology that's used to create extreme church congregations, closely linked to dominionism, the belief that the government should be run by Christians and the Constitution should be replaced with Old Testament laws. These people were already in cult mode long before Trump came along. All they needed was a leader that could take the reins and point them in the right direction. And in comes Trump. He captured these people's minds so thoroughly that they've completely worked him into their theology. The Bible talks about a time when Jerusalem fell to Babylon and the Jews were taken captive by Nebuchadnezzar. 70 years later, a pagan king named Cyrus came along and took them back to Jerusalem. Obviously, Cyrus didn't believe in the same God as the Jews, but he was nonetheless used as a pawn in God's plans. That Bible story can be found in Isaiah chapter 45. Trump was the 45th president. That's how they made the connection that Trump had what they call the Cyrus anointing. Trump isn't a super religious person, or at least not an evangelical. Cyrus wasn't a believer either, but was still used by God to accomplish a goal. So they cleanly worked Trump into their religious theology, and for that reason, they felt really comfortable making prophecies about him. That's pretty disturbing to me. These people have religious veneration for the ex-president. They'd do anything for him. Literally anything. If that doesn't scare the shit out of you, I don't know what will.